everybody, welcome to InPsightRadio. I am your host, Danielle Egnew, and you are a fly on the wall to everywhere. It is wonderful to have you with me this week. How is everybody? How you doing? I just came off of the most fantastic week of turning 50, and I apologize, I sound a little bit like Marge Simpson going on here. It's been in the negative temperatures here in Montana, severely negative, negative 41, negative 21. That's without the wind chill factor. And quite frankly, that's a normal winter for us here. And I'm a little irritated by how social media is blowing it up like we're living in the Arctic and it's this horrible thing that's happening in Montana. People, we touch Canada. It gets cold in the winter here. Okay, those of us who live here are prepared for that. We have things like boots and coats and all of that. Yet, as is standard procedure, of course, in February and March, we're in, of course, March now, I've got myself the old Marge Simpson chest cold, gang. So I appreciate your patience as I go on sounding like, Homer, go get Bart out of the garbage can, because I've got that going on. But it is par for the course for where I live. So we trudge forward. I had the most unbelievable birthday, and I'm just touching on this very briefly. We'll get right into our topic today. I just want to thank everybody, who sent out these incredible birthday wishes. My God, I had hundreds of these on Facebook, and I know many of us do. You know, we get lots of birthday wishes on Facebook. However, I just wanted to thank everybody because I read each and every one of them. And it's one of those deals where you want to respond and you're like, oh, God, should I put a heart or a thumbs up or what do I do? Because the amount of love that came pouring out was incredible. And I got to tell you, if my 50th year is going to be anything like my 50th birthday, then it's going to be full of love and miracles. And for those of you that have come to me through my spiritual work, through my other means of work that I had for years and years, which is music, then you will be excited to know that you will remember the band that I played in, Pope Jane. And we were a big 90s band, girl band, man. Rock on, Gen X. Wow! And we did very well back in the day. It was a lot of fun. And we got a chance to, you might have seen us playing with Ann and Nancy Wilson of Heart or Joan Jett or Jars of Clay or any number of the bands that were running around at that time in the 90s. And my besties, Holly and Kristen, and you'll know Holly is the bass player, and Kristen Quiner, Holly Shaver bass, Kristen Quiner drums. Kristen flew in from Vancouver, and I set up a drum kit and some drums in a dear friend Patrick's house, and we literally just had this massive jam. We hadn't played in 10 years at all. And Holly and Kristen were like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm like, you got this. I'm telling you this story because it's about miracles, okay? This is a spiritual issue. And so Kristen was like, okay, fine, I haven't played in forever, and neither had Holly. And we got back in that saddle, and we just rocked it. So remember, just because you haven't done something in years and years and years and years doesn't mean that the brain doesn't continue mapping. It doesn't mean that the spiritual joy that you once had doing that activity isn't still there. So if you did photography or you were a musician or a boxer or anything else, I mean, the physical attributes, I mean, if you were a decathlete, it's going to be a little rough, getting back in the saddle 10 years later. Yet if you're just doing, normal things like music and all that, then know that you're A, never too old to do it, and B, it can be 10, 15 years since you've last done it, yet those talents are literally mapped into the self. And what I think is massive about that is they'll come back on you. So don't give up. Don't give up what you love doing. And here's the moral of the story there in our little intro today. The moral of the story is Kristen and Holly and I got back together and had a heck of a good time on my 50th birthday party, along with dozens and dozens of people who played. Paul Melhoff, my good buddy of a zillion years, was playing guitar. And my friend Patrick Bjorndal, he was playing guitar, and he was playing a really interesting instrument called a bouzouki. My friend Lynn Halderman, who was on the baron, which is an Irish drum, and my awesome friend Maria May, who was playing bass, and Holly was on bass and keys. Always do what gives you joy, because here's what happens. If you let your joy center flow, then opportunity flows with it. So what happened at my 50th birthday was something completely unexpected. We which was that Pope Jane actually got back together. Yeah. So for all the Pope Jane fans out there, we've got a little logistical issue here because I live in Gallatin Gateway, which is basically tucked right up against the mountains going to Yellowstone Park, right outside of Bozeman, Montana. Holly lives in Billings, Montana, and Kristen lives in Vancouver, Washington. So we've got a few logistical issues to work out, yet we're all writing songs for the new album, and it's going to be so fun because we connected with our joy. And so for those who are like, you'll never get past a certain point of putting your dreams aside and you'll never be able to achieve what you want in life because you get older, that's crap. Okay, I accessed that quantum field of joy and love, and so did my soul sisters, Holly and Kristen. So Pope Jane is back together, and again, we're writing songs for the album, which is awesome. And no, that does not affect my spiritual work at all. As a matter of fact, it even makes it better because I am a giant channel, and music is a channel. It's a healing fulcrum. So being able to channel all this music is pretty incredible too. So I wanted to share that story with you because many of us hit a certain point of our lives. And when we're younger, we hit them too. I remember 25 and turning 27 and thinking I was super old. Oh my God, right? Because everything is relative. And I was in the music industry. I was signed to record labels back then. So when you were 27 years old and a woman in music, you might as well be 75. Back in the day, it was pretty bad. So to realize that all of our life experiences are relative to where we're at is really, really important. So I just wanted to tell you that story. Follow your bliss, follow your joy. And, hopefully in the next many months to come, we will have all kinds of fantastic and incredible music for you, which will be really super awesome. I'm really excited about that. So moving on to our official topic today. Our official topic, I was going through, and every morning I get up and instead of reading the newspaper, I read my iPhone because I'm Gen X and that's what we do. And I was reading about just basically, where we're at and what we're doing in the world. And, all of these histrionic headlines are coming up. And I'm fascinated by the people who write these things. Did you know that they actually hire headline writers for blogs and for newspapers? That's a thing because they need to have as many people as they can recording as much hysteria as possible in that particular headline. Because statistically, it's been shown that human beings will click on a headline if it's catastrophic over feel good. Because we have been programmed with the fear consciousness that is based out of course, the biological need to stay alive. Very important, I find. Yet we've been programmed with this. And in our programming, it's come about that we literally are in a space where it's hard. It's hard for us to click on something that's feel good unless it's really miraculous. Like, woman cures herself of cancer through eating M&Ms, which, by the way, would never happen unless she had one heck of a command of the energy in her body because cancer eats sugar. However, that's something we would click on, right? That would be uplifting, but it'd also be so freakishly weird. There's a weird factor that we click on. So anyway, I'm going through these headlines, and of course, a lot of them are political and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is constantly being thrown under the bus because A, she's a young woman. B, she's an outspoken young woman. C, she's an outspoken young woman who is not Caucasian. And D, she is an outspoken young woman who is not Caucasian, who actually was elected using hustle in her district and dethroned one of the Democratic's old guard, the Democratic, I want to call it wings, old guard, and so caused a lot of old guard ruffle. And, we like to think in political terms. We like to think in terms of, those terrible Republicans, they're the old guard. And, the Democrats are the new guard and the progressives. Well, actually, that's not really true. And anybody is an old guard who does not progress with the way that the world progresses. In fact, I know a lot of what the media likes to call moderate Republicans. Geez Louise, God bless the late John McCain. Okay, Senator McCain was far more progressive in certain aspects. Now, certain aspects he told the line traditionally, yet he was far more progressive in certain aspects than certain members of the Democratic Congress, because John McCain would oftentimes break from the lockstep vote of the Republican Party. And the Democratic Party likes to work as a bio unit. Except for now, we've got the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, and that's causing waves because the progressives are pointing to the Democrats going, you guys are old sellouts. And the Democrats are pointing to the progressives going, you guys aren't getting with the team. What's going on, man? And the Republicans are over there going, yeah, I know we have the Tea Party, but there's like 5 of them and they do whatever they're doing. And we just pretty much do what we're going to do, because we just don't get riled up on principle as much as you guys do, except for now. So today's topic, 10 minutes in, I'm finally announcing it because, wow, I'm all over the place. And it's not the cold medicine because I didn't take any today. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe a little NyQuil haze would get me a little focus here, people. Anyway, our topic today is the spirituality of politics, because there are some serious issues at play here in our political structure that we don't talk about. And as a person who works in metaphysics, it kind of makes me crazy. Now, bullet points here. As many of you know, I ran for mayor of my hometown, Billings, Montana, in 2017. And I learned a lot about the political vibration. First and foremost, when I actually signed up to run for mayor and I put my name into that system, it was so slow, you guys. Oh, my Lord, gang. It was like the slowest, most bizarre energy. I can't even describe it. So whenever you fill something out, know this, okay? Whenever you attach your name to something, whether it's just an online service or a mailing list or whatever, your name carries a vibration, and that vibration carries with it yourself, your life, everything. Words have weight. So when you sign up for something, sign up away. That's awesome. Yet you are also receiving the energy back from that particular thing. It's a reciprocity. It's energetic. Now, that doesn't mean get paranoid and don't sign up for stuff. What it means is go ahead and sign up for everything that you want to, because you're going to feel the energy back from it. Okay? What that also means is when our email address or our name gets sold on lists and all of a sudden we are blasted out to spam like crazy, and we're receiving calls and we're receiving massive amounts of email we never signed up for, we're also getting our energy spread thin because that energy is attached to us. So I want you to think, those of you that are over 30 years old, I want you to think about the time before your name and especially your email address. And for those of us whose email address is our name, which is mine, then I want you to think about the time before you got so much spam in your inbox. And I want you to think how less tired you were. Think about that. Now, I know we were younger, you guys, but that's not what I'm talking about, okay? I'm talking about having our energy gang extracted from our bodies. Are you hearing what I'm laying down, gals? This happens when we sign our name somewhere. So, and it's good because we're actually supposed to be experiencing everything out of our bubble. So no, it's a good thing. Don't get paranoid. Moving on. So when I signed up to be the mayor, to run for the mayor, rather, I wasn't the mayor. I could feel the entire political system because I had actually signed my name and placed it into the system, and it started to get processed through the system. You ever wonder why you're so damn tired when you do your taxes? Okay, A, it's boring. B, it's one of the few pursuits on earth that make you just want to grab a shovel and beat your own face in until you can't feel it anymore. Yet C, you are attaching yourself to this monolithically slow dinosaur of corporate red tape. And it is governmental and it is just god-awful, which is why taxes are a drag, okay? So I sign up to do my dealio here with the mayor, and I go into the political system, and I feel this slowness that you would not even believe. It just crawled. I just felt like somebody had gone all Jacob Marley on me and slapped massively heavy shackles on my wrists, on my neck, on my ankles, on my knees, around my waist. I felt like I was dragging the weight of the world almost instantaneously. I'm not kidding you. So when we look at these political candidates, and I know it's easy for all of us to be super critical and snarky when people run for office. Yet please know, I don't care who those people are. They just hooked up to the same system that I hooked up to, and that was just in little old Billings, Montana, population 110,000. I can't imagine what folks who are running for president are hooking up to. I mean, that's insane. So you got to have your goggles on in terms of understanding the spirituality of politics and what happens. The political spirit, there is a spirit of politics, just like there's an angel that walks with the world, okay? There is a spirit of politics, and it is a singular spirit. It's not a spirit that's a Democrat or a spirit that's a Republican or a spirit that's a progressive or a Tea Party. It is a spirit of collective consciousness. And politics reflects our current need to learn a lesson. Hear that. The spirit of politics reflects back to us our current need to learn a lesson. So when I signed up to run for mayor, do you like my confidence there? When I signed up to be the mayor, oh, you go, Danielle Egnew. Oh, goodness, you and your big bad self, goodness sakes. When I signed up to run for mayor, I was not prepared for the spirit of that political consciousness because I didn't even truly know it existed because I had never engaged it. Now, being an angelic channel, being a spirit channel, talking to off-worlders, being a psychic, being a medium, feeling every wiggle in the ethers, okay? You'd think that it wouldn't shock me all that much that there's a political spirit, but it did, so there. And I was really surprised. And not only was I surprised, I was deeply taken back by how much this political spirit or this spirit of politics actually works transparently with our need to learn. It's like a little remedial learning teacher, this spirit. So back to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's popping up in the news all over the place. She's an outspoken young woman, a minority young woman, which actually pretty soon, I feel really weird calling non-white people minorities. I think that's marginalizing. How about just a person who isn't Caucasian? Okay. So she's a non-Caucasian individual and she speaks her mind and she's in her late 20s. And as we often did, will speak before she researches. Heck, I do that sometimes. And then you got to go back and apologize. Or you think you know what you're talking about. And then you got to go back and say, gang, I made a mistake. Holy buckets. I was way off there. So anyway, she's all under fire in these news cycles. And what I'm realizing in this spirit of politics is that the spirit itself is just going to let that happen because we are learning through our criticisms of others. We are learning through our nitpicking. And the political foray has now become headline clickbait, which is why I started talking about headlines earlier. It's not even about the issues anymore. Our politics aren't about what's going on with the country. There are fantastic people in both political parties and all political parties, because Republican and Democrat aren't the only two. Okay, there's all kinds out there. There are fantastic people, period, that run for public service. And trust me when I tell you, once you hook up to that mainframe, it is rough. You wake up every day. It's like somebody stuck 25 IVs in you, just sucking out your essence. Every day you wake up. And it's being pulled into the greater collective, your essence is, because you said you'd help. And like I said, I only ran for mayor. I can't possibly imagine what it feels like to run for a national position like Congress or the presidency. So when we put this in perspective and we realize that the spirit of politics is here to teach us and that this spirit is a teacher, that starts putting things into a different perspective. Because we tend in politics to act like the dog being wagged by the tail, being wagged by the spirit of politics. Fact is, we are creating the tide that is wagging us. So let's look at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC here, as people like to call her. Old AOC, she's doing her thing, making her waves, and bringing a voice of the people to government. Now, there are tons of people, not tons, but a lot of people in the Democratic Party that are older. some are younger, that look at her and say, well, you just don't know how to play the game yet. Wait till you play the game. And there are a lot of progressives that say, well, we're here to break up the game. And the gang. Actually, that was a Freudian slip that was remarkably accurate. Weird. Anyway, so what we have a chance to look at here is that AOC is knocking around there, and she is the voice of the people. And the consciousness of government is saying, we don't want the consciousness of the people here. We are the governing consciousness. Okay, now I'm not blaming Democrats for that. I'm saying across the board, people. That consciousness in government, that's not the spirit of politics. That is the consciousness that is created in government. So right now, we have a consciousness in government that is literally saying to people, are you ready for this? It's literally saying to people, we don't need to hear the people's voice because we are the governing consciousness and we know how the game is played, and this is how you do it. That's fine if you have a voice, but you have no idea of the layers of the game. Now, the fact of the matter remains that in the metaphysics of government and in the political spirit, there is a separate game that's going on in government that has to do with money, though, people. It doesn't have to do with governing values or the Constitution or democracy. It has to do with money. So the game that's being played in our government right now is around money, yet the political consciousness is trying to teach us lessons. So let's string those two together. The political consciousness is trying to teach us lessons. The game is based around money. The lessons we're being taught right now through our political metaphysical application is about how we deal with money as a god and how we deal with money as a controlling factor over people. That is the lesson that we're getting in politics right now. And so you got somebody like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez who comes out and says, well, I don't care about your money. Stick it where the sun don't shine. We need to bring this back to the people. And we've got old guard in the Republican and Democratic Party saying, but little girl, you don't know how the system works here. You don't know how the system works. And she's saying, I don't care how the system works. It needs to be fixed. Now, here is the thing, gang. The system itself has a consciousness. And what do all living organisms want to do? What do all living organisms want to do? Do we want to die? Hell no, we want to live. So when you've got an AOC that comes in and says, we're going to change this all up, or here's another one for my Republican friends out there, the Paul Ryans of the world. Paul Ryan came in and said, we're ripping this thing down, we're gutting it, and we're redoing it. And that didn't go over very well either, quite frankly. The system looked at Paul Ryan and spit him right out and said, we're not doing that. And Paul Ryan retired because he got sick and tired of the imperviousness of the consciousness of the system, which is money. It is not government. So when we're talking about the spirituality of politics, it's important that we start to educate ourselves on what we're actually looking at as far as headlines. Because the headlines are the clickbait that get us emotionally invested in a bunch of misinformation. And pretty soon, the lesson that we are learning spiritually through the spirit of politics is about our willingness to buy into histrionic self-protection over actually coming together to make things better. You following all of that? Yeah. So what does that mean, gang? What does it really, truly mean for all of us in America land as we're watching the most exhausting crap show ever with these headlines? What does it mean? Well, it means that the spirit of politics is going to keep teaching us until we get the lesson. So we can start moving this lesson along by taking the following actions. Instead of getting hysterically riled up by people who are paid to write hysterical headlines. I want you to hear that. That's really important. I'm not faulting these newspapers and these blogs for doing that because honestly, they have to pay their Verizon bill. They got to pay their AT&T bill. They got to pay their gas bill and their light bill. And what has paid off in America is hysteria and fear. So they are just acting under a commercialized auspice of what will return them income, okay? So I'm not faulting them. I am saying to all of us out there, we are the one that is driving this norm. Every time we click on a headline that's hysterical, those writers say, okay, cool, that works. And sometimes they just employ algorithms. You know, my favorite friend, algorithms, that get in there and create all kinds of news based on, how many clicks certain words get. So we are the ones. We are the living collective algorithm, humanity. I talk about this all the time. There's almost 8 billion of us. There's over hundreds of millions of us in the United States. I'm not sure what the United States population is. However, there are tons of us here, okay? And we can create our own algorithm by accessing the quantum field and deciding what is cool and what is not. We can turn our back on histrionics. We cannot click on the clickbait headline, but God, isn't it hard? Oh, and I know the physics of this. I know the algorithms. Gang, I can trace this stuff down to infinitesimally tiny vibrations in the quantum field. And I will still click on a clickbait headline sometimes. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing, Danielle Egnew? You are contributing to the lesson that you teach. We should be working to steer ourselves away from, only because, a lesson is valid. It's not that the lesson is bad. It's that there's a lot of people who don't understand that we're stuck in the lesson like a hamster wheel, and they think that that's what America has turned into, as opposed to seeing it as a consciousness lesson. And so the spirit of politics is over here saying, y'all want to keep learning ugly? I'll just keep giving you ugly. Y'all want to keep learning idiocy? I got you covered. Anybody watch Idiocracy? Because that was a predictive element. Have you seen Idiocracy? Oh my God. Okay. Oh, years ago, this movie came out, Idiocracy. You have got to rent it. It's a little depressing and hysterical at the same time. Yet it's where we're at in our country. And that's all I'm going to tell you. It was a comedy. It is a comedy. Yet it's a predictive comedy. Somebody brilliant wrote it. Yet that was the spirit of politics at play through film, saying, y'all might want to learn this before we get there. I'll leave you with this before you watch Idiocracy. You can rent it. It's fantastic. Idiocracy. I'll leave you with this. Brando, it's what plants drink. Okay. So what we're looking at here is an opportunity to understand that the spirit of politics is holding up a giant mirror, for a very simplistic way to put it, or lack of a better way to put it. And it's asking us, do you want to engage in fixing the problem or creating the problem? So whenever we want to say, get rid of all the people in government that don't work, that is half of it. The other half of it is that people become enticed by money. And when people become enticed by money, they no longer speak for the people because they're getting paid by lobbyists and other things. And also it's important to remember that our government is literally run by the military-industrial complex, gang. And yes, our representatives and our senators make a great big difference. Of course they do. Congress makes a much bigger difference in running the country than the president does. Quite frankly, the president's great big fat job is to motivate and inspire, be a figurehead, and put the final stamp on something, which then Congress can overturn if it feels like it. I mean, literally. So we do not have a system of government where one branch is greater than the other. What we do have is a spirit of incestuous competition and greed that is taking over even the collective consciousness of government right now. So the spirit of politics at this time is about playing the game, not serving the people. And there are good people trying to serve the people while trying to dismantle the game. So if we can have some patience while this all tries to go down, it would be great. When we look at what's happening in our world right now, what we see is instantaneous reaction to an emotional response. And many of us are putting our emotional responses online. A lot of it happens on Facebook. I actually have been spending less time on Facebook than I used to because it is just this wallowing pit for people, and it gets to be a bit heavy for me in there. I mean, I post stuff on there. I do, what I'm doing and this and that, or I'll share a funny meme once in a while or whatever. Yet it's important to remember that as we post things virtually, it hits the quantum field. Again, remember words, remember our name. If you think you can get onto Facebook, and I'm using Facebook as an example because people don't tend to flame each other quite so badly on Instagram. Yet Facebook, if you attach your name to a rant, that energy of that rant is going to perpetuate itself through the quantum field, and you're going to pull to you all the things that you ranted about. And not to mention the algorithms find you and return every news headline that you're afraid of. There you go. Algorithms are like creepy piranhas. They smell the fear in the water, and they just swim up to you and to tear you apart with every fear you've got. And pretty soon you're floating in a sea of headlines of zombie apocalypse. And oh my God. So we look at the misinformation being passed around in the spirit of politics, and what we actually are seeing is the misinformation that we are willing to pass around. Politics is a mirror. So we hyper-focus on one person because we can't deal with the whole problem. And the whole problem is that America, we are addicted to consumerism. We are addicted to sticking our head in the sand. We are addicted to what I call bumper sticker thinking. Whatever the TV pundit says, whatever the radio personality says, we spit it out. Here's a great example. Socialism. What a hot button word. I have so many wonderful conservative friends, and I've sat down and had some discussions with a few of them because they're throwing around the word socialism, thinking that this is a socialist country. They're trying to turn us into a socialist country. And I'm laughing. I'm like, do y'all even know what socialism is? Well, that's when there's a lot of taxes. Yes, but no. Why don't y'all read about what it is and come back to me, and then you tell me if the Democratic Republic of the United States, because we actually are a republic, we're not actually a democracy. We are a republic that works on a democratic principle, which is a complete and total experiment. And that democratic principle can collapse at any time. And quite frankly, we're right on the edge, gang. This is a psychic prediction for you. We are right on the edge of that democratic principle. It's actually, technically, it's actually collapsed because this is a plutocracy. It's an oligarchy. We've been working under the auspice of money running everything, just like an old monarchy, for a long time. And that comes through the military-industrial complex. Yet we, the people, can still change all of that because we are the planar array that are hooked up to one another, and we can change the vibration of the quantum field to the point where the quantum field simply will not support a plutocracy. But we've got to be the ones to quit going around with our bumper sticker thinking and spitting out, the latest words that we hear about, Republicans are racists. And, Democrats are socialists. We sound like a bunch of jacked up parrots. America's doomed. America's doomed. I mean, it's ridiculous. But this is what sells, gang. So the spirit of politics is actually a teacher. And what it's teaching us is that we love to be told what to think. America, we have been programmed since the 50s by flashing strobing televisions. And for those of you that follow my podcast, I had a whole podcast that went really into how the brain can be programmed by flashing strobing electromagnetic waves. And the original televisions were giant electromagnetic units catching electromagnetic broadcast signals with huge magnets in the back of them. And magnetism, of course, affects how the brain processes. And we were sitting in front of these strobing lights with massive electromagnetic power bursting into literally our brains. And little kids in the 50s, god dang, they'd sit right in front of that TV because it was fascinating, It was like, that's how you created IMAX in 1955. You just sat 2 inches from the TV and you had a big IMAX right in front of you. So we've been programming ourselves, literally programming our minds, our thought processes for a long time. And if I'm not trying to sound like a doomsday queen, gang, on these podcasts. I realize I go back and listen to them and I'm like, God, woman, you think of yourself like a unicorn, but you're kind of an anvil dropping on the birthday party cake of a 4-year-old here. Just, jeez. That's not my intention, gang. My intention is to draw attention to the sleight of the hand shell game that is spiritually played in front of us all the time so that we can be aware of the energies to which we adhere. And it's okay. It's okay if we really want to just get into that lesson and get lost in consumerism, that's an okay lesson too. If you want to believe America's doomed and it's all going to hell in a handbasket and you want to get all wrapped up in that fear, that's a lesson. That's all good. The spirit who walks with politics is like, rock on, I'm doing my job. Woo, I'm going to get a promotion. Maybe I'll be the spirit who walks with toilet flushing, because God knows that would be a promotion from being the spirit of politics. So, we are moving at a pace here of understanding and of awakening. And the reason I get into these little tiny nitpicky little pieces on these podcasts is not to confuse you or to muddy the waters. It's to tell you that everything has a cause and everything has a reaction. Yet, gang, we as the giant planar array of connected humanity, we are the cause and reaction at the same time. Okay? And it's such a layered sandwich. We can elect greedy people that propagate the spirit of greed in government, that uphold the plutocracy and the oligarchy, and on we go. Okay? Or we can elect the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes who get in there and rock the boat and inspire the planar array called humanity. Many people, I know a lot of conservatives that can't stand her. I know a lot of conservatives that love her because she's getting in there and just digging up the roots and saying this old system sucks and we have to fix it. And this is what I like to see. I like to see people throwing out their team jerseys to support people who they feel are working in the interest of the people. Now, obviously, I have conservative friends who look at AOC and they say, my God, she's crazy. She wants to do away with cows, which she doesn't want to do away with cows. The Green New Deal got a bunch of hysterical clickbait like crazy. Yet it's a thing, gang. I'm guilty of this myself. It's a thing that the stockyards create a lot of methane. They create a lot of greenhouse gases. Now, I can speak to this firsthand living in Montana. We have a lot of stockyards. We have a lot of cattle, and you drive by them and you can smell the methane. It's called cow poo. And it's everywhere. And it's thick and it's heavy. And those poor cows aren't treated well anyway. And this comes into a conundrous place for myself because I am a person who eats meat, which is shocking to many people. And I'm working on my meat consumption here, not because I think it's some big holy roller thing to do, but just because I've been educating myself in plant proteins. And there are different blood types, gang. There really are, that rely on different types of proteins because we didn't just evolve only eating plants. So we have different needs in our blood and whatever your needs are. So for me as a meat eater, my wife and I buy a cow every year that is grass-fed, it is grass-ranged, it is grass-finished. It's not kept in a stockyard. It's just open-range cattle, which doesn't necessarily contribute in the same way to the methane markets as what AOC is talking about here. Yet I still eat meat though. Okay. So there you go. And what I think is so fascinating about this is that we'll take one little piece and create fear out of it so we can polarize. So we can keep wearing our donkey jersey or our elephant jersey. And hey, have your team, pick your team. Like I say, I'm a Seahawks fan, so go ahead and pick your team and root for them. Yet understand that we don't actually send pipe bombs when our team loses the Super Bowl. We don't shoot up schools because our team loses the Super Bowl. So when we're dealing with the spirit of politics, we are also dealing with the belief system here that we are actually giving so much credence to that we are making it a god in our lives. Now, this is really important, and I've kind of saved it for last, so hang in there with me here. There are people who get so frothed up over their political belief system that they would literally kill for it. We call those people extremists. Now, if you are a super right-wing person and you want to kill for it, you're going to call yourself a patriot. However, that same person is going to look at a Muslim terrorist and call them an infidel, when in fact that Muslim terrorist is doing the same thing. They're blowing things up because there is a belief system for them and they feel like they're a patriot. So it's fascinating that we oftentimes find grave fault in others for doing that which we expend into the world ourselves. So when we're talking about the emotionality of politics and how we've made it a religion, this is really important to understand, gang, because here is a hugie. If you take nothing else away from this podcast, take this out, is that the spirit of politics has nothing to do with the place of deifying politician and politics. That goes into a religious position. And when we get religiously fanatic about our politics to the point where we are no longer speaking to family members because of disagreements in opinion, to the point where the religion of our politics defines us, oh, gang, the tail is wagging the dog, okay? Hear this, gang. We have exalted the political parties and political systems in our nation to a religion. Now, what is the difference between a political assignment of belief and a religious assignment of belief? Well, politics are a political belief is supposed to reflect our inner opinion, okay? So I could say, okay, my political belief as example would be a Democrat/progressive. You know, in some ways, I'm very much into hugging. Obviously, I'm a huge environmentalist. I truly believe that we need to cut our greenhouse gases. These are things I can see psychically down the road are absolutely going to kill parts of the planet flat up because we are not making changes. So I want to try to, weigh in and make those changes the best that I can. However, my political affiliation reflects my inner belief system. A religion will define your belief system and ask your inner belief system to compromise or give away its own compass, for lack of a better way to put it, in order to adhere to the collective belief. That is a religion. Now, you notice I didn't say spirituality, okay? A religion demands that you adhere to its mores and that you give away your own inner belief system to adhere to the belief system of the structure of the religion. So for many people, politics has become a religion. They have given away their ability to say, God, I am a progressive, I am a Democrat, but man, it's really hard for me to say no death penalty to child molesters. I'll tell you, I have a hink in my armor right there, because when you have somebody who's continually harming somebody and hates themselves and hates their life, I'm not saying go put their head on a pallet and just chop them all off. Yet I'm simply saying that it is hard for me to say, well, why isn't that a good idea for this person to come out of the lesson pool? Well, obviously I'm not God, okay? So it's probably a good thing I'm not in charge of that. And I'm not saying I want to kill all child molesters. I'm using that as a broad brushstroke of an example of a moray that would not be applied to progressive thinking, okay? Yet it rolls around the back of my head occasionally. There it is. So if I were to apply my political beliefs as a religion, I would tell myself I was a horrible human being for thinking that way. I would be like, what is wrong with you? The collective says we're not supposed to do that. And I would give away my personal opinion, which maybe I should because it's kind of brutal. Yet I would give away my personal opinion to make way for the collective thought process. Now, creating the religion of our political belief, quite honestly, is a little more popular on the left than it is on the right. Now, you got to get way far to the fringy part of the right before they are lumping God, country, religion, and guns and blowing things up into one unit. It's really interesting because if you get into traditional conservatism says, why can't we all just think for ourselves? Why can't we all just balance our own budgets? Why are we being told by a government what we're supposed to do because we are not like the Borg, okay? Can't we all just do the right thing and get along? That's traditional conservatism. Traditional I'm not going to say progressive because progressive is fairly new, but traditional democratic politics is the government is not here to propagate big business. It is here to fund the people and the people's needs and to manage infrastructure. It is an administrative branch of managing the country, and we do need to put money back into the country for roads, for schools, for the military. I mean, we need to put it all back in there because we all live here, and it's sort of our rent for being Americans. We need to pay taxes so that we can actually fund the things that we need. And also, there are people in the country who are disabled. They need some help. Government is here to be a safety net for the people. We're not all just living on the moon, with our own little plot of land, making our own individual stances. So traditionally, and those are broad brushstrokes, those are the differences in the modalities politically. Yet when we make those things religions, and it is more popular on the left to publicly shame people in a groupthink sort of way if they are stepping outside of the bounds of what the religion of the groupthink is, that is more popular because of the nature of how many empaths are drawn to the left. A lot of empaths tend to be Democrats or lefties just because our heart is bleeding for the world. And it's not to say, I know a ton of empathic conservatives, for God's sakes, gang. I'm not saying if you're an empath, you have to be a progressive. I'm simply saying that need to be the collective organism seems to exert itself more in the left. And that's fine. It's fine. It's kind of how the left functions. However, when we see it turn into a religion where we must, for the right or the left, and we see that we need to give away the gray area in ourselves to start towing the religious party line, that's where the spirit of politics has to put its hands in the air and say, gang, I'm out. Because now you're dealing with the lessons of, like spiritual belief. And I am here to hold up a lesson to you. So what we're trying to learn about with politics is that we are trying to learn that we are trying to figure out where our moral compass is. And I'll tell you something, our moral compass is going to be all over the place because we're human beings. And that moral compass is going to have a lot of gray area, and it's not right or left. It's going to be a little of this. It's going to be a little of that. It's interesting. I have some conservative friends, and I spend a lot of time just listening to my conservative friends because it's just not necessarily how I think. It's not how I see the world. Yet what I think is fascinating is I don't hold any judgment there. I'm just fascinated to learn a separate modality than how I see the world. And one of the things I think is so interesting is that in the conservative realm, they can overcorrect with the shoving stuff under the carpet and not mentioning it because they are so adhered to let everybody live their lives and do their thing until you get way far to the right. And then it's everybody needs to believe in Jesus and we're going to blow up an abortion clinic. Yet those folks and the way super left, which is everybody who doesn't believe in giving away your cows needs to die in a holy fire, those people are actually cut from the same lesson cloth. They are just exacting those lessons through different political beliefs, okay? So, when we look at this, and I look at some of my conservative friends, they have this fascinating lens on, like, say they've got an aunt or an uncle who's a crazy, in their mind, a crazy progressive or a crazy Democrat. And I do separate Dems and progressives because they're starting to separate themselves. So there you go. So I think it's interesting because my conservative friends will not, they might have their talking points and talk about how great Trump is and, boom, 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 God, country, America, taxes, socialism. They all have the same bullet points they throw out, okay? However, after a certain point, they're just like, well, whatever, you and your crazy beliefs, whatever, let's move on to a beer. Whereas we lefties will be so wounded by that, we'll just stay in like a freaking pit bull. And we'll be like, no, but you have to listen to me. We're killing the planet. So then it's interesting because, gang, I am speaking in energetic, wide brushstrokes. Obviously, there are little nuances here that are different. Yet traditional conservatism comes down like 2 or 3 hammer blows. Boom, 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 boom. And that's the end of it. And I'm not talking about it anymore, right? And traditional progressive folks is the continual pressuring leak of trying to educate and proselytize. And literally, it's It's hysterical because neither one of these modalities religiously works. Look at the hell and fire and brimstone old school religions. The old days of the Catholic Church or the hardcore Baptist or hardcore evangelical movement. Boom, 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 boom. A few hammer strokes, that's the way it is. I'm not talking about it anymore. You're either with me or you're against me. Okay? And then you look at the other religious, the more feel-good, the Foursquare churches, there's a million of them out there who want to get out there and they want to just passive-aggressively proselytize all the time. And hey, everybody can come to our church unless you're gay or transgendered. But we'll just get to that afterwards and we'll get you in and we'll give you a hug and we'll give you some juice. And then, hey, but then we're going to really work on you kind of passive-aggressively about how you're secretly a bad person because you're really not doing the things we need you to do. And if you want to be part of a group, then you kind of need to start doing this. And the more you're part of our group, then pretty soon we're going to get pretty hardcore. And pretty soon we're going to have a group intervention. That's more the left's religious way of handling things as opposed to the boom, boom, boom way of the right. Neither one of them works religiously when applied to the spirit of politics because the spirit of politics is holding up a mirror saying, who are you? And why do you act this way? And what are we doing? So I would encourage everybody, especially as we're ramping into 19 and 2020. Oh my God, here comes the political candidates out of the woodwork. And I have absolute empathy for all of them, having gone through the very tiny little experience I did running for mayor. Yet let's have a little empathy. Let's realize that these are all human beings. Most people want to get into public service because they want to make a difference. There's a few out there that just want the power and the money, all right? Because they're human, whatever. That's not new news. Yet when we talk about the spirit of politics, it's very important to point out that if you are someone that has made politics a religion for yourself, you are learning about your need for belief. And it's not bad nor good, gang. I would encourage anybody out there who has made politics their religion, if that's the last thing you believe in the world is the political agenda. We can be people who work for amazing social and fiscal and spiritual and emotional change and lawfulness in our country without having to mindlessly assign away our own moral compass, or let's throw out the word moral, because people's morals are going to be different, okay? Without having to assign away your own gut to the group think. I don't care if it's group think left or group think right, okay? Group think can be positive if we are using the quantum field for enlightening the miracle capacity of everybody else. Yet groupthink has turned into a religion, becomes a hammer, whether it's on the right or the left. So I would tell you that the spirituality of politics right now, we are on a razor's edge. And we are literally walking. If you've ever seen a razor blade, obviously you probably have, how thin they are. And I don't know, I was a kid once. That's shocking. And I would pick up a razor blade and I would look at it under a microscope because I was so wicked fascinated with how thin, not a microscope, a magnifying glass. I did try to look at it under a microscope one time and it didn't work out very well. I was fascinated by how thin the edge was, by how razor thin. And I wanted to know, as a 7 and 8 year old, how many molecules thin is that razor's edge? Because I was fascinated that we could cut something to such a minute degree. So when I say razor's edge, I want you to think about the fact that we are down to the spiritual molecules in our political environment of cutting we're cutting between the cell membranes. We're cutting between the margins right now. We're walking a very fine line between being duped by a sociopathic consumerist culture that's hoping that we buy the jerseys and we buy the distinctions and we buy the franchises all the way down to continue to pump money to that franchise. All right? And then to turn it into a religion Because what will we do? We fund our churches because we believe in them. Wherever there is belief, money follows, right? So we're walking that razor's edge, or we have the choice to recognize that we can fund whatever we want to fund. Yet we, the people, in how we purchase products, in what we buy or don't buy, is going to actually determine the fate of our country. Now, it's not to say don't believe in your candidate. It's not to say don't go canvass. Oh, heck, I do political canvassing sometimes. Not lately because my time has been restricted. I donate to political campaigns. Be part of it. When you give your money, you're giving your energy also to that person. Go for it. Be part of it. Yet understand that those people aren't going to change the system. They are part of the change. We are the biggest part of the change. We live in a place where the spirit of politics is continually holding up a mirror to us saying, what lesson do you want to learn? And right now, the lesson that we are learning is how not to worship money, how not to allow money to control everything. And moreover, we're learning the lesson of creating a religion out of an administrative belief system. Think about it. We are creating religions around a way to administrate budgets. We are creating religions around the way to affect social change. Now, why is this important to know the difference? It's important because whenever we get belief to the point of a religion, it means that we just turn off the dang noodle, we turn off the dang brain, and we start operating on bumper sticker bullet points. Think about it. Think about the Crusades, the Catholic Crusades, way back in the day. They went in and slaughtered people. They turned off their brain and went strictly for the groupthink agenda of, in their mind, it was transformation, when it was actually suppression. So when I don't care if you're on the left or right or in the middle or where you're at, when your political beliefs become religious beliefs, then the ingrained, learned response of wanting to proselytize comes forward. And it's fine. Get into your good-natured debates with your neighbor or your sister, your brother, your uncle, whatever. Yet at the end of the day, if you can't laugh it off, then you're learning about yourself, not about them. You're learning about where their belief system lies. It's interesting. I have people that complain about Facebook. I'm complaining about Facebook, but they're complaining about Facebook in a different way, where, they'll post something political and then their uncle, whatever, John or their Aunt Jane will come on and post something right underneath of it that's an opposing commentary. Okay, fine. But here's the thing. We know we can't change people's minds religiously, right? I can't walk up to a Muslim and say, the whole Muhammad thing is bogus. You really need to know that Joseph Smith translated onto a golden tablet the new words of Jesus Christ in the Americas. So you should really try being a Latter-day Saint, because your religion is bogus. We know that proselytizing religiously does not work. People's beliefs are their beliefs. And I do believe that it's good to grow and it's good to receive, differing opinions. That's fine. Yet if you're somebody out there, just hear this and try not, because I'm might be stepping on some belief toes here. So there may be some, mobile devices flying through the air with this particular podcast. Yet understand that if you've got to hop right on and refute somebody and, oh yeah, you like Trump. Well, here's the 90 things that Trump did that were crap. You're not going to change that person's mind. You're going to get yourself upset because you're not going to change that person's mind. And you're actually more so trying to convince yourself because you sure as heck aren't going to convince them. I have a dear friend who every time I would post something online would pop up and post some completely opposing thing right underneath of it. I finally just quit sharing political stuff, even if it was uplifting, because I'd have a bunch of people just diving right on with just crazy ranting weirdness that had nothing to do with the article I posted, and just rant, because every time my friend would do that, I would think to myself, gosh, I wonder what my friend is trying to convince themselves of, that maybe there's a wiggle in their ideology, there's just no point in refuting politics online because, gang, you're not going to change anybody's mind. So, and you're not going to spread, You're not going to fix misinformation because, again, we have turned the spirit of politics has thrown up its hands going, guys, this is the spirit of belief. I have nothing to do with this. We make it into a belief system and then we wage wars over belief. Okay. And that's where we're at in America. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because we are coming into a presidential primary and it's going to get super stupid with the clickbait headlines. And I do mean stupid. I do, with all of the judgy judgment in it. I'm sorry. I'm human. Okay. It's going to get so stupid with people just being ugly and awful and buying into these clickbait headlines. So let us do our best as the collective we, the people, to not fuel those algorithms by clicking on every god-awful Barnum and Bailey sensationalist, rotten headline that we can. Let us do our best to instead, when people are being, when they're railing, calling the right Nazis and calling the left socialists, let's do our best to hold a space for humanity. Because government, gang, our government is so taken over by money and the military-industrial complex that these babies going in to represent your voice, I don't care if they're Republican or Democrats, they are up against a giant granite, impassable monolith that is so tall that they're going to get there and go, where? I can't even see the top of that thing. It goes into the clouds. And it is impassable by the nature of what it is. Yet we, the people, can access love, community help. We can disassemble the fear narrative by going and reaching out to the, quote, god-awful liberals or the, quote, god-awful Republicans. We can reach out to each other and come together in community and on a quantum level, melt the fear that is fueling the corporate belief in both of these political religions of Republican or political religion of Democrat that force us into positions of turning the damn brain off and just getting in there to passive aggressively beat someone into shame online, lefties, or to come down like the hammer of God's patriotic justice, black and white, right or wrong, and there's no other way to go about it, my conservative friends. We can come together in the middle of all of this and be human. And the minute we are human, the spirit of politics actually stands a chance to do its job. So understand where we are at. Understand how much emotional and spiritual belief you assign to your political affiliation. And hey, there's no wrong or right answer here. You want to go absolute guts and tea kettle into the Republican or Democratic Party, go for it. Yet understand that your lesson is not about political affiliation, and the lesson is not about making the country better. The lesson is showing yourself where your convictions lie. Because in a world where our devices are AI-driven and call us by name, in a world where we have 14,000 friends on Facebook, but we're lonely by ourselves in our house, in a world where we struggle to find meaning day to day because what the plutocracy, what the corporate driving, reigning king is saying, and I'm not talking about Trump, I'm saying the spirit, the king, the monarchy of the corporation is saying to us all, is that you must adhere to groupthink or you're out. Please understand that it is your individuality during this time frame that's going to save us all. It's the gray area in everybody that's going to save us all. I myself really like Nancy Pelosi. Now, there's some things I don't like about her, but I'm sure there's some things Nancy Pelosi would like about me and some things she wouldn't. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes with humans, okay? Yet Nancy Pelosi was getting on old Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because she was not coming together as a team enough. And the old world, we had teams of people that had to run against that monolithic granite plutocracy to try to topple it. Yet we can do it better, gang. All we have to do is change the consistency of the soil underneath of the granite monolith. and it will come down. Are you hearing me? Teams needed to run up against that monolith. The Republican team, the Democratic team, that was the old world. That was the imbalanced portion of the patriarchal. That was the imbalanced masculine, not the divine masculine, where you had to use power and force and brute bludgeoning to get your point across. We are in the time frame of the feminine. And we simply can change the consistency. You know what would make that granite wall topple? Let's put 15,000 hoses right into the ground and make mud. And let that thing come down. In order to make mud, we have to have gray area. Are you hearing this? So as you go in to understand the politics, actually understand the spiritual physics, and the spirit of politics is here to reflect to us that which we are, not that which we can be. The spirit of belief is reflecting back to us that which we wish and hope we are. All right? So it's a little different. Spirit of belief is, if I do this, then I think this will happen. And believe in what you're going to believe in, yet understand where it's coming from, gang. And be okay to have some gray area. You want to know why the word moderate is getting such bad press right now? Because the powers that be in this country do not want anyone to have some gray area. The minute we become, quote, moderate, and it's just such a bad word. It's really a bad word in the left. I don't know if it's as bad of a word in the right, but I think it is. It's a pretty bad, moderate. They don't really believe like I believe. Listen, people. We all need a little moderate here, okay? Be passionate and fiery about what you want to believe in, but the minute we assign away our ability to become mud and mix with one another, then we're up against the granite monolith all over again. So again, we all are entitled to our lens. We are all working through our own lessons. We all have what we have to give. I'm going to get a lot of hate mail on this. I can feel it coming in the ethers already on this podcast because people are going to misinterpret what was said as an attack on their beliefs, on the fact that I'm trying to water people's fierce fighting abilities down, the fact that I'm trying to enact erasure and suppression. And oh my God, I can see these letters. I can literally physically see them in the ethers coming in. That's not what I'm saying. We all get to hear this podcast the way that we are. But this, again, I know a lot of people see me as a puffy angel whisperer, and I love that. Yet I am an alarm clock. That is my job. So know this, gang, and I'm going to go all over the place teaching on the quantum field very quickly. I've got an engineer who's screaming at me again because I'm over time. Sorry, man. We had this big conversation the other day, and the engineer's like, what's your deal with going over time? You can completely hit the mark if you're on live broadcast TV. And I said, but I'm not, man. I'm on my own podcast. So we're just flowing with it. So here's the deal. I am going to be having an incredible forum coming up on March 16th. That is here in Billings, Montana. God bless it, at Barjan's Books. And this forum is going to be all about using the quantum field. And what's fascinating and going to be fantastic about this is I am really excited to teach this principle. The forum is tapping into the quantum field for ultimate prosperity. And prosperity is mind, body, spirit. It's not just money. It's great jobs. It's wonderful relationships. How we can actually utilize the spiritual physics of the mud underneath of that granite monolith that I've been talking about to change the dynamics of it, to allow that giant monolith to gently come down, and we can repurpose that granite into a million different things. It's not us against the monolith. It's how to change the dynamics of where we're at. If you are in Billings, Montana on March 16th, those tickets are $45. You can go onto my website, Danielle Egnew, EGNEW-advisor.com. Hop on there and grab yourself some tickets. Know, gang, that this recording is actually taking place on March 6th. So this is our first day of Mercury retrograde. Make sure that we are patient with others as we listen to their communication. And it's hard not to look in the rearview mirror during retrogrades and take everything personally. Also use this time for administration, getting caught up. I'm going to do my taxes. Thank God. It's a good time to get caught up on everything we need to get caught up on. So take this retrograde in stride. Use it for personal growth and learning. I love you all, and I will see you next week.